So, Olivia Sandoval, you joined Fargo in season 3 as Winnie Lopez, coming into a show that has already been established as a critic's darling and an audience favorite so late into its run. What's that experience like for you?
Still somewhat hard to believe. I still kind of have that feeling of like, me? Are you sure? Because there's all these, no, it's been a pinch me a few months here. And then of course, once we started the process, I mean, it's such a lovely, incredible group of people. There was never one moment where I felt like I was in over my head, which was sort of surprising to me because I would fully expect to be, plagued with anxiety walking into such, as you said, an established show. But it really is the most incredible group of creative people that I've ever worked with. So despite all of the reputation, it was just fun. It was just fun. We just all had fun in Canada, in Calgary, in sub-zero temperatures, which is saying something about the people. If you like being up at 3 a.m., 30 below, you're probably with a good crowd.
Take us a little bit through the audition process with this. What were the scenes that you were given, and what was your first take on Winnie when you first were reading the script?
Well, the first scene, my first audition scene was that scene in episode 4 with Michael Stuhlbarg in the office, in the Stussy Lots office. And as soon as I saw that scene, I had this immediate kind of heart connection to the character, to the point where I actually had a moment where before I went into the audition, because I wanted it so bad and I was so excited and I was thinking all of these crazy thoughts, I had to sit down and sort of get myself together and just say, go in and do your job and just go in and be the person and just, don't think too far down the line, which is something that you go through a lot as an actor. It's really easy, especially when you have a deep connection to a character, to start already having ownership of it. And so I said, well, you get to have ownership of it for the 10 minutes that you're in that audition room. So just sort of focus your thinking to those 10 minutes, and lucky you, really, that you get to speak these words. It's so, it's so rare. I mean, to have such an incredible scene to do for an audition, it felt like a treat just to be able to do it for that moment. And then when I got the callback scene was that scene in the bathroom. So of course, all of my feelings, all of my warm, fuzzy feelings towards Winnie were only increased tenfold by the time I had the callback. And I left feeling, I didn't want to think it, because I wanted to sort of manage my expectations. You learn to do that in this business. But I left that callback thinking, whoa, that feels good, and so lucky for me, I was right. But still, even when they called, to say that I had the role, I was still that feeling of like, are you sure? Like, are you sure? Because it's, not all the time you get a yes. So lucky me. That's all I can say is lucky me.
Congratulations. You've joined in this show and in the film, there's this very strong female voice and a tradition of female cops. I mean, whether it's Marge Gunderson in the film through now you and Gloria Burgle, played by Carrie Coon. Can you talk a bit about that strong female voice that this world of Fargo has and becoming a part of that?
Well, what I like especially about season 3 is that, I mean, obviously Marge Gunderson, iconic character. So that's sort of always that's the platform that we all get to stand on. And then what I like about season 3 is that Carrie Coon's character is a little bit more, it's a different kind of female cop than we've seen in the Fargo world, where, she's gone through this divorce, she's raising this 12-year-old son, for all intents and purposes by herself. She just, she doesn't have that sort of like energy that a lot of, even Allison Tolman's character had, that sort of politeness and that energy. And, Gloria has just been through the ringer. And so what was really fun as an actor, Winnie is still the opposite. She's, super plucky and super outgoing and obviously, super happy-go-lucky in a way. And so her happy-go-luckiness, once it crashes into Gloria's sort of what's up with the world, fed up, exasperated place that she's in, it was a wonderful kind of bouncing back and forth, this sort of ping pong game that we would have that ends up actually really complementing each other. And it's almost like we become sort of one sort of force, I think, by the end of it, because we balance each other out in that way.
Yeah, and that optimism that Winnie has is so unusual really for the world of Fargo. And did Noah Hawley give you some kind of information or some background on this character, or was it a lot of stuff that you just filled in yourself?
Well, I think
about where this optimism comes from.
You know, Noah was very just sort of let me do my own take on it, and so I never really had a conversation with him about it necessarily. But at the same time, she's such a clearly written character. She's such a clearly written character that I felt that it was all there in the writing. And a lot of the optimism for me as a performer came from the fact that she's trying to start a family with her husband, who, even though we don't meet, his name is Jerry, he does have a name, but we don't meet Jerry, but she's truly in love with her husband. And even though I always got the sense that it's like, the old ball and chain, but she really loves him. And she's trying to start this future with him. So even if she's going into kind of grim and grisly scenes and there's murders, and that optimism comes from the fact that she's looking towards the future always. And I don't think that she's the type of person that would doubt that she has this future ahead of her. And it gives her motivation to not only stay safe in the world and take care of herself and take care of Gloria, but it also gives her something to fight for. You know, the reason I think Winnie really wants the world to be a good and better place. And there's a big part of her that believes that it truly can be. And Gloria is kind of, you know, maybe not so sure at this point. You know, she's looking at the world. I think there's that wonderful line that Michael Stuhlbarg had, you know, what's wrong, hun? The world is wrong. I think in a way, the whole season could be wrapped up in that little moment with him and his wife in the foyer or wherever they are.
And that dynamic between the two of you is shown really beautifully in this one scene. I think it's in the 9th episode where you guys are at a bar. Can you talk a bit about that moment between the two of you? That
was honestly one of those singularly special and beautiful moments that, as an actor, I can't remember a time that I've enjoyed acting more than getting to play off of Carrie in that scene. And what I love about it is there's almost a role reversal that happens, because Winnie looks up to Gloria, and it's a little bit of an art imitating life thing. Definitely, I, as a newcomer, really looked to Carrie for guidance, and she provided it, you know, with, I didn't even have to ask. I mean, she was just the most incredible support system and friend for me. And that scene was shot, you know, near the end of our time shooting. So in that scene, there's all of this friendship that has been building between Gloria and Winnie, and also this friendship that had been building between Carrie and I. And it was one of my last scenes with her, so it almost felt like me sort of thanking her and saying goodbye, to this process. And Winnie almost becomes a mothering figure in that scene. And actually the costume designer talked about that, kind of wanted to get her, you know, it's you don't necessarily see it, but I knew, you know, we had this sort of like floral, almost hippie motif underneath the leather jacket, which was not what I expected, but it made total sense. Because by the end of their time together, I think that Winnie provides a security system for Gloria and a sense of empathy that she's been missing in her life.
And talking about not just that particular scene with Carrie, but also just over the course of the season, a lot of the scenes are the two of you together, whether it's going up against, you know, the superiors, mostly men, which
yes.
seems like it has a specific role, but there's a lot of nonverbal communication between you and between Winnie and Gloria. How did you and Carrie work together to kind of establish that relationship?
It's funny, we did that non-verbally, which is, I think, part of why it worked. It's funny, my dad actually asked me, there was the scene that we had in the office with David and Ewan. Carrie and I found ourselves sort of breathing at the same time. And like, you know, our moves were sort of synchronistic. Like I would be looking at one guy and then she would be looking at the other guy. And then we would kind of, and that all happened really naturally. You know, we had this sort of, it wasn't a, well, we had this semi-tradition before every take where Carrie and I would do this choreographed little dance together. It was sort of like our little secret handshake. It's really hard to describe, but it was like this shuffle where I try and keep my torso as still as possible, and then my legs would kind of go, and we would do this little shuffle together before we went on, and we would always share a look, you know, before we started rolling. We'd always just share a look, and there was just this unspoken kind of dance that they do together that I also think has a lot to do with the strategy of being a policewoman and being constantly in that sort of state of fight or flight and constantly asking, what's the truth? What's the real truth? What does this mean? Why is this guy acting that way? And it was just fun. And like I said, Carrie is just, I mean, she's just, you can't ask for a better scene partner. You really can't. I mean, she's supportive and she's warm and she's playful. And it came naturally.
And I mean, going off of that, you two are always the smartest people in the room. You're always being constantly underestimated in your police skills, your brilliance, your grasping of the situation. Can you talk a bit about that?
Well, unfortunately, I think that it's will come as no shocker to a lot of women that we get looked over in rooms, especially in professional worlds, especially in professional situations that are considered quote unquote a man's world or a man's game. I mean, how many times I can think of so many times from my personal life where I was in a professional situation and I would come up with an idea or kind of try and interject something, and I would either get interrupted, or even the super fun thing that happens when someone else, usually a man, introduces that idea as their own. You know, like, hey, you know what? So I love that Noah has created this sort of team with Gloria and Winnie as a kind of righteous combating of, and they just don't take no for an answer, which is just so great. You know, it's really easy. It would have been easy for Gloria as a character to back down, and the less that Gloria backed down, it kind of fires up Winnie. She's like, you know what? I can do this. I can have a voice. I think that the two of them are really brave. I think they're really brave characters, and, you know, thank God.
You mentioned your father earlier, and it would be remiss of me not to mention your father, the great Miguel Sandoval. Was acting always in the cards for you? Was that something that was always where you were headed, or did it come later on?
Well, you know, I announced, I think when I was 7, that I wanted to be an actor. And then my dad was like, just think about it, you know? And so I spent about 10 years thinking about it because, you know, when I was especially very young, my dad was still struggling in his career a lot. And I've seen firsthand that kind of anxiety and how hard it is to break through that wall. So I knew exactly what I was walking into, and I had no reservations about how hard it was going to be. I knew the reality. And it was the moment, I was about 17 years old when I thought, you know what, for better or for worse, I have to do this. I was just like, I have to do this. But yeah, my little joke is that, you know, both my parents are actors. I had no hope. You know, I never had a chance.
Well, I mean, what did growing up in that kind of environment with all that kind of creativity around you, what did that give you as a person that you use today?
Well, certainly my parents were so wonderful about taking me to the theater and having the arts, and not just acting, not just film and theater, but also my mother's an amazing poet, an amazing writer. And there was, you know, our dinner table conversations were always about arts and politics and philosophy, and having that enriching, and I was never made to feel that because I was young or a kid that I couldn't be a part of that conversation, which, you know, made me tenacious, frankly. And I mean, of course, my dad's mentorship is absolutely invaluable. He's an incredible actor, and has both experience in experimental mime, which is how actually my parents met. My mom was my dad's mime teacher. And that's why my dad's an actor, is because he said, oh, that girl's cute, and oh, they pay you for this, and then that was the end of that story. So I had a really great experience of like going and seeing, you know, stuff at La Mama in New York City, and also going to popcorn movies. It was a really wonderful, I mean, my parents are fantastic. They're my best friends.
I think that's the first mime story I've ever heard.
Yeah, no, I get a lot of sideways glances when I tell that story.
Yeah, you can't talk about Fargo without talking about the accent, and I want to know from you, how difficult was it to master the accent, or was it difficult at all?
The lucky thing for me in this situation is I'm a total dialects and accents nerd. It's always been my favorite part of the craft. And when I was a kid, during those 10 years when I was trying to think of something else to do besides acting, I would entertain myself by kind of picking a dialect of the month that I decided I wanted to learn. Like this month Irish, the next month English, just for fun, just as a hobby. And after I saw the film Fargo, I thought, I've got to learn that one. That one's so cool. It's so unusual. So it was something that I had in my back pocket. And it was something that my friends would ask me to pull out at parties, you know, hey, do Fargo, like that kind of thing. So again, once the audition came along and she's like a Latina, Midwestern Latina cop in Fargo, I was just like, this is going to be the most fun I've ever had in my life. This is going to be perfect. I finally get to do my Fargo dialect in a professional setting.
Serendipitous, yeah.
Yeah, no kidding.
Going off of that, I mean, the show and the film always has this great sense of place and setting, and with the cold and the snow and all that. What did that add to your characterization? I mean, how did that help you?
Well, the gear, you know, the coats and the hats and the gloves and the taking them on and off and getting overheated once you get inside, and then getting, you know, immediately the chills once you get back outside, you know, and especially for a police woman, you know, I mean, a cop, they have all of their gun belts and stuff are kind of attached to the coat, like they're like all these pulleys and levers. So taking the coat on and off, like when you would come into an office to interview someone, for example, it wasn't as simple as just taking the coat on and off. So I would have, I mean, I remember I had a whole conversation with Mike Uppendahl about like, so does she have the coat on in this scene? Because if I were this woman, I would just think, I'm in here for an interview, I'm going to be in and out, I don't want to deal with taking my coat off, so I'll just sweat it out. And it was kind of became a little character choice about Winnie just not wanting to deal with the coat. So she just kind of kept her coat on and became this almost like, watching some of the footage, I'm like, she's like a little police gnome, you know, kind of like, you know, it informed her physicality. So, I mean, and then, you know, of course, shooting scenes outside when you've got adrenaline going because you're on the hunt, or you're, you know, in the prowler and they're slipping on ice and your breath is showing and you've got frozen snot or whatever coming. I mean, that's all, you really can't. There's no, being in Calgary, you can't fake that. You really can't. That was real.
I'm curious, you know, with the Emmys coming up, Emmy voting is, you know, sort of started right now. What do you hope for this show when it comes to the Emmys, or is that something you even think about?
Well, I do think about, I want all of, listen, I want it to win all the awards. I do. I totally do, because I love it so much. I love the experience. I think that, you know, particularly Mary's performance this season, everybody's amazing. Michael's amazing. Shay is amazing. Ewan's amazing. David is like just insanely good. And Mary, just the fact that she's got this badass femme fatale character who is so untraditional in terms of femme fatale characters. We're so used to seeing them kind of there to swindle the guy, or, you know, bleed him dry and, you know, seduce him and then take all his money, where we're seeing a femme fatale character and a femme fatale story that's a true love story at the same time. And I find that so compelling, and Mary is just so perfect in it. But I of course, I want everybody to win all of the accolades, and I want Noah to win everything. And it's tough, and it's hard to say that because it's so competitive out there this year. There's so much good content on TV right now. So I just feel happy to be a part of one that, you know, that I can definitely be proud of.
Well, Olivia, thank you so much, and congratulations on Fargo. We appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. Take care.
You too. Have a good one.